Hi there, I'm Jake Humphrey. Welcome along to another extended episode of the High Performance Podcast right here on YouTube. You are going to hear and see stuff that you just haven't heard or seen anywhere else. Genuine inspiration in today's episode. This is what's in store.
But the working class mentality going back was always like, it was almost like, you know, if things start getting a little bit tougher, you wake up an hour earlier, you go to bed an hour later, right? You don't stop grafting. Graft, hard work.
There's loads of great stuff in this episode, but listen, before we get going, I would love it if you could subscribe, but as well as that, just hit the notification bell as well, because as soon as there's a new episode or something fresh from all of us, you will get it first. But for now, grab a pen and paper, because I think you might need to make some notes on this episode. It's full of brilliant takeaways. Enjoy. Here we go. Welcome to the High Performance Podcast, Eddie Hearn.
Good morning.
Nice to have you with us. Let's start as we always do then, Eddie. What is high performance?
I think high performance is about consistency. You know, it's about being at the top of your game. I think, you know, it's a very, very early part of the podcast to plug my new book coming out. But I just wrote a book on everything you just said, basically. And it was like therapy for me, because I think the only way you can achieve high performance is to have a passion for something, because you need that relentless drive and that spirit and that work ethic to continuously be at the top of your game. It's very tiring to be at the top end of anything, you know, or to continuously have that drive. But when you have a passion for something, when you have belief and purpose and point, it's like the work seems seamless, you know. So you'll get to a stage where, and I think, you know, I'm sure we'll talk about lockdown, how that's changed the mindset. But prior to lockdown, the last 2 years of my life have been a complete roller coaster in terms of just, you know, putting the hours in, putting the hard yards in, putting the miles in, transatlantic every week. And people would say to me, how'd you do it? You know, and it's only when I look back in lockdown, I think to myself, blimey, how did you do it? And the way that I did it was because of the passion that I had and the fire I had in my belly every time I woke up. And you can't do it without that. You know, it's impossible. You know, we have a saying in our family, no passion, no point. And that basically means that if you don't want it, if you don't believe in it, if it's not driving you every single day, high performance is impossible. It really is. So before we start, you have to almost strip things back and say, I need to find that desire. I need to find that purpose in my life, because you can't just create it. You know, you can't trick yourself or fib yourself into it. It's something that has to come from within. And before you talk about positivity, relentlessness, work ethic, mindset, it has to have that underlying passion beneath it.
So the people who are listening to this podcast now and they think, oh, you know, my life is sort of endless struggle. I really want to be successful, but it's constantly battling, constantly struggling, not getting a thrill. They're perhaps putting in as much effort as you are, maybe even more at times. But maybe the issue is they haven't found their passion. It seems like for you, the absolute crux to all of this is it has to be something that you're passionate about. And if you're finding you're struggling without the joy, maybe you're doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm a big believer in playing the hand you're dealt. You know, everyone has a different background. Everyone has their different struggles. You know, for me, I was born into a very successful working class East End family, you know, almost like a first generation of a guy who come from a council estate, did very well, made money. And I was lucky enough to be brought up in that environment. Didn't stop him drilling working class mentality into me every single day of the week. But that was my hand.
How did he drill that mentality into you?
Because it was just the will to win. You know, it was never giving me... He was petrified growing up that I was going to be the kid that he hated growing up, which was the silver spoon kid.
we all think that, don't we, about
I know, yeah. But we joke now, you know, he still calls me silver spoon, you know, and we joke about it. But, you know, I'm a silver spoon kid because I was born into a wealthy family. But the difference is my dad was from a council estate in Dagenham, right? It's not like I'm sixth generational, you know, Lord something. It's just I'm my father, really. And through growing up, nothing would ever come easy. And I talk about this in a book where I was saying, like, you know, as a kid, when you talk about parenting, and I was joking with him about this last night, if I went to play cricket, right, and he would say to me, good luck, and I would come back and I would go, how many runs do you get? And I'd go, 6. And he'd go, oh, come on, son. Come on, you've got to do better than that. Not how'd the team get on? You know, oh, well, at least you tried. You know, you took part though, son. You know, it's everything has always been devoted to winning, right? It doesn't matter whether we're playing cricket in the garden. I would be 8 years old playing in the garden. He would never go, yeah, just, lob one up for me. When I hit the ball and he was bowling full tilt, it's because I deserved it, and I'd earned that right and I was good enough to do it. When we played table tennis, darts, it doesn't matter what it was. He would never, ever let me win. And when I started beating him, it's because I was good enough. It's because I deserved it, and he would always make me work, put in the time. And it's very difficult, being someone who's raising kids in that kind of environment, I think, because, the worst thing you can do is bring up a kid that doesn't understand the value of money, respect, manners, mindset, work ethic, all these things. But when you go back to your original question about people who feel like they're stuck in a rut, people sometimes define success in so many different ways. As you get older, you realize success is not about the bottom line of a balance sheet all the time. That's just a target for me. It doesn't matter when me and my dad sit down at the start of a financial year and say, okay, the target is 1 million or 100 million. That's just a number. What comes from there is the desire to hit that number and win and hit targets. That's the challenge for us. So I don't think people need to get lost in the idea of success. You define success yourself. Success can be going to the gym 5 days a week. Any success can be any target. Success is what gives you fulfillment. And when we talked about this big thoughts and big master plans and stuff like that, the easiest way that I find some kind of sort of strategy or balance in what I'm doing is to focus on the short-term goals and the short-term strategy. Too many people, those people that you're talking about there will look at saying, oh, I'm not going anywhere. I need to be here. This is where I need to be. But they're forgetting about the bit in the middle. They're forgetting about the day-to-day bread and butter stuff. And that's the simple stuff that will get you to where you need to be. And I think anyone that loses focus, anyone that's struggling a little bit with their mental health, they just need to keep day by day simple. Write things down, get that sense of achievement and fulfillment. Could be anything. Could be walking the dog, could be going to the gym, could be completing a project, could be cooking yourself a meal that you saw on the telly. I don't know. But if you write them down, you complete those tasks. For me, anyway, that gives me the sense of fulfillment and purpose. But don't be too obsessed with the definition of success. You have to find that yourself. And happiness and success isn't always identical. You can achieve a lot, and we see it, a lot, where people achieve so much, but actually they're not that happy. And you might look at someone else's life and say, well, he ain't really achieved a lot, but he's blissfully happy. So, and
that is success, isn't it? Being happy.
Say that again?
At the end of the day, that is success, isn't it? Being happy.
I suppose so, yeah. But it depends on the conversation. If you're talking about success within a career, then I see being happy is you're right, is a success.
Because if your career is successful and you're not happy, then surely that isn't successful.
But we see that a lot. Yeah, but we see that a lot. But I think when you talk about a successful, what do you talk about? You talk about a successful businessman, or you talk about a successful footballer, or a successful. You can be those, but you could be unhappy inside, or you could not.
Well, are you
feel
still
fulfilled.
Successful then?
Because you've achieved within your career, your industry. If you go out, you could be a successful businessman without being happy. In fact, I would say 90% of successful businessmen are probably unhappy and are actually mostly arseholes, to be honest with you, right? But excuse my language. But it's like that's the difference between the almost like the perception of success and the truth of success. Yeah. But you can be successful in your field without being successful in your life.
Eddie, can I take you back to some of those working class values that you said your dad passed on to you? Because I'm interested that you're a father now and that you're responsible for passing on values to your kids. And you spoke about your dad sort of despised that silver spoon attitude. How do you avoid that with your own kids?
Very difficultly. I have 2 daughters, which is a little bit different. I think... I see them as sort of my little princesses. I want to, I work as hard as I can every single day. So I want them to achieve a great upbringing. I want them to have nice holidays. I want them to go to a great school. I want them to have nice presents at Christmas. But I want them to have for me, the working class values and working class mentality is some of, the greatest people that I've ever met are the people that hold those very true to their heart. Like my mum is proper old school. You got to understand, I come from a background where my mum puts the food on the table when he gets home from work, and that's how it is. She irons a shirt for him every single morning and puts it up on the door.
Wow.
Right before he goes to it. These are all things now that almost sound, sexist, if you like. But you have to understand that's that era, right? And it was never strange to anyone. But this is what we do. We're a family. This is what we do. So I think as a parent now, growing up in that kind of environment, I can't expect my kids to be normal, because they don't live a normal life. And I didn't live a normal life growing up. And I struggled at school, looking back, because, I might be in New York at the weekend watching Nazim Hamid, and floating around and walking his belts out at 13.
Yep.
And then I fly back and then I'm at school and this teacher's saying to me, do this, Hearn, do that. And I'm thinking, who are you? And that's when I look back, I hate that. That makes me feel, really frustrated that I was disrespectful. But I had a chip on my shoulder because I was always Barry Hearn's son. So when my kids go to school, I know that the kids are going up to them saying, oh, you're Eddie Hearn's daughter, you're Eddie Hearn. And people don't realise, going back to playing the hand you're dealt, everyone has their own struggles. For me, I never had to struggle about money, but what I struggled about was trying to create my own identity and my own purpose without just being Barry Hearn's son.
And how did you do that? Because I imagine when you, like now it's okay because you're Eddie Hearn and he's Barry Hearn, but when you first started, you would have been, oh, that's Barry's boy. How did you go about saying, no, I am Eddie and this is what I stand for?
It was having the chip on my shoulder and it was having the drive. And you only realise it when you get older that actually the main drive for me and the reason I do what I do is because I have a responsibility to continue the legacy that my father built within this business, which is everything to him. But two, to achieve my own legacy and my own sort of identity as an individual. I had Frank Lampard on my podcast the other day. He was in the year above me at my school or our school, and he was always Frank Lampard's son, right? Yep. Because his dad played football. He was good at school. He was never, messy, but all of a sudden he got into West Ham, and all it was, oh, your dad got you in. Your dad got you in. And when I spoke to him the other day, it was the same kind of thing, where it was like that drive. The only way I can get credit myself is to take this thing to another level. So for him, it was about, I have to be better than my dad, right? I have to achieve more than my dad to be. And now people don't even realise that his dad played football. Yep. I joke with my old man now. I was at Ascot last year and someone come up to him and went, oh, you're Eddie Hearn's dad, aren't you? And we just absolutely wet ourselves, and that's like, but that's massive. Everywhere again, going back to fulfillment and the sense of achievement for me, my that achievement, that feeling I get is by saying, oh wow, yeah, your dad was great, but wow, what you've done, you've taken it to another level, and that was what gave me the drive and purpose to have that sort of relentless spirit and mindset to just keep grafting. But the working class mentality going back was always like, it was almost like, if things start getting a little bit tougher, you wake up an hour earlier, you go to bed an hour later, right? You don't stop grafting. Graft, hard work. And that's really simplicity. I feel, going back to sort of mental health, I think that the reason people struggle is because they overthink things. Life can be as simple as you want to make it, but I promise you, the simple box ticking exercises are actually what's going to put you in a great place. And from a working class point of view, he would make me clean his shoes, most every other day. He would make me clean the car. He would get me working at Leyton Orient when we took that over, painting fences. It was always just like, but I like to do it because I was motivated by money as well as a kid, because he's motivated by money. And I was, in his slipstream, that obviously the whole of those years.
So can I ask another question then, Eddie? Because one of our guests that we interviewed recently was a guy, Fred Doan, who's made the Betfred Empire. Yeah. And one of the things that he'd said was that he almost pitted lottery winners, that because there's no sense of achievement in earning all that money. So it was almost like the mental leap you have to make is pretty significant. So for you, when did you feel that you'd made it on your own terms rather than you just inherited that empire?
I'm quite pessimistic, and I'm also my biggest own critic. So I still, I don't look back at what I've achieved so far and say, wow, I've cracked it, or, I've made it. I feel like I'm at like 30-40% of where I can get to or where I need to be. But that keeps me on my toes. Again, Fred is a proper old school working class guy who, people love in the industry because he made it from nothing. He created that himself. And sometimes I think the only bit of jealousy I have, I can't really call it regret, but is that I didn't get a chance to have a crack from nothing. Sometimes I look at my dad and we're walking around his house and he's got hundreds of acres and he's looking around like as if, 72, as if to say, I can't believe this. You don't understand where I come from.
Yep.
And I've got this. I can't get that feeling because I've always come from that. So it's, I do have that jealousy actually of him and Fred and people like that. So the fulfillment can only come from achievement, and we go back to success. But that's the drive for me. We're a family business that started under a snooker hall in Romford, right, with 2 employees. So we got to a level where we were like a huge, national company. Now we're at a level where we're a huge global business, people trying to buy us, people trying to get us to float on the stock market. And now it's like, we got to just decide what we want to do as a family. But we've reached the heights together, me and him, that he never expected, and before I got involved, as I wind him up, we were a successful business, but we were nowhere near the levels that we're at now. So that's my sense of achievement, and that's where I feel like, but I never feel like, when we did Joshua Klitschko at Wembley, that was probably one of the points where 90,000 people, biggest fight of all time in Britain, people were coming up to me saying, oh my God, I've been to Ryder Cups, I've been to Wimbledon finals. That was better, There wasn't one point during that night or even after that night where I sat down and said, wow, you've done well there. You've cracked it. And I guess that's a little bit sad. But actually, Lampard said that the other day. Lampard said he won a Champions League, he did this. And he never once sort of sat back and said, oh, you're the man. You've cracked it. Wow.
It's dangerous, that mindset, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But I guess that maybe that's common with a lot of people that are just consistently trying to push the boundaries, consistently trying to, achieve more. You've got to be a little bit careful, because I think you don't want to get to a stage where you're 80 odd and you're sitting back and going, blimey, I didn't really enjoy that success, And I don't know. I find myself always pushing. You set yourself a target. You think, if I can just get there, and you get there, and then you go, okay, well done. Now this, and I just think you got to be a little bit careful. It's great to be in the hustle, but you can't be in this rat race. And I think it's what lockdown showed you, when people just step back out of the bubble a little bit and go, wow. Because I think a lot of young people who are doing well have that push without thinking about, your family, your kids, your life, what you're doing, and I think you just got to be a little bit careful.
Can I ask you another question then, Eddie? Because
Sure.
one of the things that intrigues me about you is that there's all these kind of social media things that are associated with you being the showman and being the promoter of some of these big fights that you do. And yet, talking to you here, there's real substance in terms of how you built the business and the drive and the relentlessness. How do you find that balancing act between being a showman and giving good copy to the media, but actually then nailing it in terms of delivery?
I think the most important thing for me is to be remembered as a great businessman, operator. I guess you can put showman in that bracket as well. When the meme stuff come out, there was a guy called Andy who works for the NHS, and he sent me a direct message on Twitter. And he said, look, I've seen a lot of your interviews. Do you mind if I sort of run this Twitter site? It's going to be called No Context Hearn. And I was like, yeah, mate. Like, how big could that be? Anyway, next thing, they've got like 500,000 followers, and it's literally everywhere. I mean, my kids are coming up to me saying, Dad, you're on TikTok. I'm like, what? And it's a meme of me doing something. So that's great, because I am a showman. But, that's also why I wanted to write a business book, because I don't want to just be a meme.
Yep.
I don't want to be remembered as just a joke. Like,
That's
yeah,
the
it was great.
You've got though, Eddie, is that when you're standing in the ring and you're calling out another fighter to come and fight, Anthony Joshua, there's millions of people seeing that moment. When you're on TikTok or when you're on Twitter, there's millions of people looking at it on their phones. When you're sitting in a board meeting and you're making serious, heavy business decisions that could change the fate and the future of Matchroom, no one sees it. That's the challenge for you, I think, is to tell that part of your story as well. Maybe you don't want to tell that part of your story.
Well, I just think as you get older, you get more comfortable in yourself and you say, well, yeah, I don't feel like I have a responsibility to tell my story. You know, I want people to know what makes me tick and what gives me that fire in my belly. But at the end of the day, you can judge me how you want to judge me.
Do you care what people think of you?
Not anymore. Not really.
When you say not anymore, there was a period where you did?
Yeah, a long time. Yeah, but I think I was insecure. I think, like, growing up, I was Flash Harry, right? I was obnoxious at school, but I was definitely insecure. You know, and I think that goes back to, oh, you're Barry's son. Yeah, Barry's son. Yeah. I didn't think that at the time. You know, and I only think that now because I look back on my life and think, you know, because sometimes I think to myself, how do you do what you do, or why do you do what you do? Where does this come from? Like at school, I was never, you know, I loved sport. You know, I put 120% into that, but it wasn't like I was this kid at school that was like driven for success. You know what I mean? So it's just like as I started to become more comfortable in myself.
So have you answered that question then? Where this drive comes from?
I think it is just wanting to create my own, you know, my own identity.
But where does that come from though?
That comes from being a successful person's son. You know, and the drive comes from the foundations that my dad built within me to go on. But it still comes down to what we talked about earlier, the passion. Yeah. You know, the drive. I want this so bad. Like, you won't beat me and I won't be outworked. And that's the difference, because if you're good and you refuse to be outworked, you're actually unbeatable.
Interesting episode, hey? And of course, there's so much more from the High Performance Podcast as well. Please hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, give us a thumbs up, leave a review, but somehow get involved with the High Performance Podcast and become part of our growing community. Thanks for being part of the adventure.